Hare Krishna. So, to continue my own purification, and for the pleasure of Srila Prabhupada, my spiritual master, we're going to continue reading the Srimad Bhagavatam. This is Canto 4, shown right here, Canto 4. This is continuing reading about Dhruva Maharaj, and chapter 10. The chapter is entitled Dhruva Maharaj's Fight with the Yakshas. And Dhruva Maharaj is all grown up, and he's ruling the kingdom of his father, which is basically the whole universe. We'll say a couple invocation mantras, and then we'll keep going. Let me post this to Facebook real fast. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam namaskrityam naram chaiva narotamam devim sarasvatim vyasam tato jayamudirayat nastapraya shubhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtaki shinvatam svagata krishna punya shravana kirtana hridantasto hyabhadrani vidonoti suhitsatam. Okay. Couple technical things, and there we go. So if everybody here could just say something in the chat, just say Haribol or Hare Krishna, like me. Oh, I'm still getting over this cold. Okay, so Dhruva Maharaj fights with the Yakshas. Okay, chapter 10, text number 1. The great sage Maitreya said, My dear Vidura, thereafter Dhruva Maharaj married the daughter of Prajapati Shushumara, whose name was Brahmi, and two sons named Kalpa and Vatsara were born from her. Haribol. So, purport. It appears that Dhruva Maharaj married after being installed on the throne of his father, and after the departure of his father to the forest for self-realization. It is very important to note in this connection that since Maharaj Uttanapada was greatly affectionate towards his son, and since it is the duty of a father to get his sons and daughters married as quickly as possible, why did he not get his sons married before he left home? The answer is that Maharaj Uttanapada was a Rajarishi, saintly king, Although he was busy in his political affairs and duties of government management, he was very anxious for self-realization. Therefore, as soon as his son Dhruva Maharaj was quite worthy to take charge of the government, he took this opportunity to leave home, just like his son, who without fear left home for self-realization, even at the age of 5 years. These are rare instances from which we can see the importance of spiritual realization is above all other important work. Maharaj Uttanapada knew very well that to get his son Dhruva Maharaj married was not so important that it should take preference to his going away to the forest for self-realization. Text 2. The greatly powerful Dhruva Maharaj had another wife, named Ila, who was the daughter of the demigod Vayu. By her he begot a son named Utkala, and a very beautiful daughter. Text 3. Dhruva Maharaj's younger brother Uttama, who was still unmarried, once went on a hunting excursion and was killed by a powerful yaksha in the Himalayan mountains. Along with him, his mother, Suruchi, also followed the path of her son. She died. Text 4. When Dhruva Maharaj heard of the killing of his brother Uttama by the yakshas in the Himalayan mountains, being overwhelmed with lamentation and anger, he got on his chariot and went out for victory over the city of the yakshas, Alakapuri. Purport. Dhruva Maharaj is becoming angry, overwhelmed with grief, and envious of the enemies, was not incompatible with his position as a great devotee. It is a misunderstanding that a devotee should not be angry, envious, or overwhelmed by lamentation. Dhruva Maharaj was a king, and when his brother was unceremoniously killed, it was his duty to take revenge against the yakshas from the Himalayas. Text number 5. Dhruva Maharaj went to the northern direction of the Himalayan range. In a valley he saw a city full of ghostly persons who were followers of Lord Shiva. Purport. In this verse it is stated that the yakshas are more or less devotees of Lord Shiva. By this indication the yakshas may be taken to be Himalayan tribes like the Tibetans. That's interesting. Text number 6. I guess that makes sense because the Tibetan Buddhism is, Mayavadi philosophy is basically covered Buddhism. It pretends to not be impersonalist, or it pretends to believe in the soul, but the philosophy is exactly the same as Buddhism, except for believing in spiritual energy, believing in the soul. And so consequently, all of Mayavadi philosophy, they all worship Lord Shiva too. Unless, of course, they come from the Rudra Sampradaya, which is a bona fide Vaishnava Sampradaya. But generally, you'll find in India that people who are Shaivites are usually impersonalists, and they generally come from Shankaracharya and so forth. So text number 6. Maitreya continued, My dear Vidura, as soon as Dhruva Maharaj reached Alakapuri, he immediately blew his conch shell, and the sound reverberated throughout the entire sky and in every direction. The wives of the yakshas became very much frightened. From their eyes, it was apparent that they were full of anxiety. Text number 7. Translation, O hero Vidura, the greatly powerful heroes of the yakshas, unable to tolerate the resounding vibration of the conch shell of Dhruva Maharaj, came forth from their city with weapons and attacked Dhruva. Text 8. Dhruva Maharaj, who was a great charioteer and certainly a great bowman also, immediately began to kill them by simultaneously discharging arrows 3 at a time. Translation, when the heroes of the yakshas saw that all their heads were thus threatened by Dhruva Maharaj, they could very easily understand their awkward position, and they concluded that they would certainly be defeated. But as heroes, they lauded the action of Dhruva. Purport. This spirit of fighting in a sporting attitude is very significant in this verse. The Yakshas were severely attacked. Dhruva Maharaj was their enemy, but still, upon witnessing the wonderful heroic acts of Maharaj Dhruva, they were very pleased with him. This straightforward appreciation of an enemy's prowess is a characteristic of real Kshatriya spirit. Text 10. Just like serpents who cannot tolerate being trampled upon by anyone's feet, the Yakshas, being intolerant of the powerful prowess of Dhruva Maharaj, threw twice as many arrows, 6 from each of their soldiers, and thus they very valiantly exhibited their prowess. Text 11 and 12. The Yaksha soldiers were 130,000 strong, all greatly angry and all desiring to defeat the wonderful activities of Dhruva Maharaj. With full strength, they showered upon Dhruva Maharaj, along with his chariot and charioteer, various types of feathered arrows, parighas, these are iron bludgeons, nishtrimash, swords, prasashulas, tridents, parashvadas, lances, shaktis, pikes, rishtis, spears, and bushundi, weapons. Doesn't say what bushundi is. So text 13. Dhruva Maharaj was completely covered by an incessant shower of weapons, just as a mountain is covered by incessant rainfall. Purport. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur points out in this connection that although Dhruva Maharaj was covered by the incessant arrows of the enemy, this does not mean that he succumbed to the battle. The example of a mountain peaks being covered by incessant rain is just suitable, for when a mountain is covered by incessant rain, all dirty things are washed from the body of the mountain. Similarly, the incessant shower of arrows from the enemy gave Dhruva Maharaj new vigor to defeat them. In other words, whatever incompetency he might have had was washed away. Text 14. All the siddhas from the higher planetary systems were observing the fight from the sky, and when they saw that Dhruva Maharaj had been covered by the incessant arrows of the enemy, they roared tumultuously, quote, "The grandson of Manu, Dhruva, is now lost." They cried that Dhruva Maharaj was just like the sun, and that now he had set within the ocean of the Yakshas. Purport. In this verse, the word Manava is very significant. Generally, this word is used to mean human being. Dhruva Maharaj is also described here as Manava. Not only is Dhruva Maharaj a descendant of Manu, but all human society descends from Manu. According to Vedic civilization, Manu is the lawgiver. Even today, Hindus in India follow the laws given by Manu. Everyone, therefore, in human society is a Manava, or descendant from Manu. But Dhruva Maharaj is a distinguished Manava because he is a great devotee. The citizens of the planet Siddhaloka, where the residents can fly in the sky without airplanes, were anxious over Dhruva Maharaj's welfare in the battlefield. Srila Rupa Goswami says, therefore, that not only is a devotee well protected by the Supreme Lord, but all the demigods and even ordinary men are anxious for his security and safety. The comparison given here, that Dhruva Maharaj appeared to merge in the ocean of the Yakshas, is also significant. When the sun sets on the horizon, it appears that the sun drowns in the ocean, but factually the sun has no difficulty. Similarly, although Dhruva appeared to drown in the ocean of the Yakshas, he had no difficulty. As the sun rises again in due course at the end of night, so Dhruva Maharaj, although he might have been in difficulty, because after all it was a fight, and in any fighting activities there are reverses, that did not mean that he was defeated. Text 15. The Yakshas, being temporarily victorious, exclaimed that they had conquered Dhruva Maharaj. But in the meantime, Dhruva's chariot suddenly appeared, just as the sun suddenly appears within foggy mist. Jai. Purport. Here Dhruva Maharaj is compared to the sun, and the great assembly of yakshas to foggy mist. Fog is insignificant in comparison with the sun, although the sun is sometimes seen to be covered by fog. In fact, the sun cannot be covered by anything. Our eyes may be covered by a cloud, but the sun is never covered. By this comparison to the sun, the greatness of Dhruva Maharaj in all circumstances is affirmed. Text 16. Dhruva Maharaj's bow and arrows twanged and hissed, causing lamentation in the hearts of his enemies. He began to shoot incessant arrows, shattering all their different weapons, just as the blasting wind scatters the assembled clouds in the sky. 17. The sharp arrows released from the bow of Dhruva Maharaj pierced the shields and bodies of the enemy, like the thunderbolts released by the King of Heaven, which dismantle the bodies of the mountains. 18 and 19. The great sage Maitreya continued, My dear Vidura, the heads of those who were cut to pieces by the arrows of Dhruva Maharaj were decorated very beautifully with earrings and turbans. The legs of their bodies were as beautiful as the golden palm trees. Their arms were decorated with golden bracelets and armlets, and on their heads there were very valuable helmets bedecked with gold. All these ornaments lying on that battlefield were very attractive and could bewilder the mind of a hero. Purport. It appears that in those days soldiers used to go to the battlefield highly decorated with golden ornaments and with helmets and turbans, and when they were dead, the booty was taken by the enemy party. Their falling dead in battle with their many golden ornamental dresses was certainly a lucrative opportunity for the heroes on the battlefield. Yes. Text 20. Translation. The remaining yakshas who somehow or other were not killed had their limbs cut to pieces by the arrows of the great warrior Dhruva Maharaj. Thus they began to flee, just as elephants flee when defeated by a lion. Text 20. Dhruva Maharaj, the best of human beings, observed that in that great battlefield not one of the opposing soldiers was left standing with proper weapons. He then desired to see the city of Alakapuri, but he thought to himself, quote, no one knows the plans of the mystic yakshas. So the battlefield suddenly became empty. Translation. In the meantime, while Dhruva Maharaj, doubtful of his mystic enemies, was talking with his charioteer, they heard a tremendous sound as if the whole ocean were there, and they found that from the sky a great dust storm was coming over them from all directions. Within a moment the whole sky was overcast with dense clouds, and severe thundering was heard. There was glittering electric lightning and severe rainfall. My dear faultless Vidura, in that rainfall there was blood, mucus, pus, stool, urine, and marrow falling heavily before Dhruva Maharaj, and there were trunks of bodies falling from the sky. That's pretty frightful. Frightful and nasty. Text 25. Next, a great mountain was visible in the sky, and from all directions hailstones fell, along with lances, clubs, swords, iron bludgeons, and great pieces of stone. Dhruva Maharaj also saw many big serpents with angry eyes, vomiting forth fire, and coming to devour him, with groups of mad elephants, lions, and tigers. Then, as if it were the time of the dissolution of the whole world, the fierce sea with foaming waves and great roaring sounds came forward before him. So, there's a picture. You want to see the picture? Probably do. There's a picture on the back of the book. It shows this scene. Actually, if I was better at production, I would just pop the picture up on the side, but there it is. Text 29, or 28. The demon yakshas are by nature very heinous, and by their demoniac power of illusion, they can create many strange phenomena to frighten one who is less intelligent. When the great sage heard that Dhruva Maharaj was overpowered by the illusory mystic trick of the demons, they immediately assembled to offer him auspicious encouragement. Translation, text 30. All the sages said, "Dear Dhruva, O son of King Uttanapada, may the Supreme Personality of Godhead, known as Shangadhanva, who relieves the distresses of his devotees, kill all your threatening enemies. The holy name of the Lord is as powerful as the Lord himself. Therefore, simply by chanting and hearing the holy name of the Lord, many men can be fully protected from fierce death without difficulty. Thus a devotee is saved." Purport. The great rishis approached Dhruva Maharaj at a time when his mind was very perplexed due to the magical feats exhibited by the yakshas. A devotee is always protected by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. By his inspiration only, the sages came to encourage Dhruva Maharaj and assure him that there was no danger because he was a soul fully surrendered to the Supreme Lord. By the grace of the Lord, if a devotee at the time of death can simply chant his holy name, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Simply by chanting this Maha Mantra, he immediately surpasses the great ocean of the material sky and enters the spiritual sky. He never has to come back for repetition of birth and death. Simply by chanting the holy name of the Lord, one can surpass the ocean of death. So Dhruva Maharaj was certainly able to surpass the illusory magical feats of the yakshas, which, for the time being, disturbed his mind. Lessons, the Bhaktivedanta Purports of the 4th Canto, 10th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Dhruva Maharaj's Fight with the Yakshas. Now that last purport's really interesting. That simply by chanting, one can be protected from fierce death without difficulty. Yeah, and Dhruva Maharaj does again take shelter of the Supreme Lord, more specifically and more focused at the end of his life, and he steps on the head of death as he goes to aboard the airplane that takes him to the spiritual world. We'll get to that. So chapter 11. Swayambhuva Manu advises Dhruva Maharaj to stop fighting. Sri Maitreya said, "My dear Vidur, when Dhruva Maharaj heard the encouraging words of the great sages, he performed the achmana by touching water and then took up his arrow made by Lord Narayan and fixed it upon his bow." Purport. Dhruva Maharaj was given a specific arrow made by Lord Narayan himself, and he now fixed it upon his bow to finish the illusory atmosphere created by the yakshas. As it is stated in the Bhagavad Gita 7:14, Mam eva ye prapadyante mayam etam tarantite. Without Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, no one is able to overcome the action of the illusory energy. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has also given us a nice weapon for this age, as stated in the Bhagavatam, Sangopangastra. In this age, the Narayana Astra, or weapon to drive away Maya, is the chanting of Hare Krishna mantra in pursuance of the associates of Lord Chaitanya, such as Advaita Prabhu, Nityananda Gadadhara, and Srivasa. Text 2. As soon as Dhruva Maharaj joined the Narayana Astra arrow to his bow, the illusion created by the yakshas was immediately vanquished, just as all material pains and pleasures are vanquished when one becomes fully cognizant of the self. Purport. Krishna is like the sun, and Maya, the energy of Krishna, is like darkness. Darkness means absence of light. Similarly, Maya means absence of Krishna consciousness. Hey, Krishna consciousness and Maya are always there, side by side. As soon as there is awakening of Krishna consciousness, all the illusory pains and pleasures of material existence are vanquished. Mayam etam tarantite. Constant chanting of the Maha Mantra will keep us always aloof from the illusory energy of Maya. Yeah, we're spirit souls. We're naturally Krishna conscious. We're naturally spiritual. So it's just a question of keeping Maya away. And by that avoidance, we become Krishna conscious. Therefore, there's two processes. One process is to stop doing material activity. That's the Nivritti Marga. And then the positive side of things, doing spiritual activity, Pravritti, is basically the same thing. But both processes work, and Krishna says that in Bhagavad Gita. Our path is, like Prabhupada's saying here, to chant Hare Krishna, because then by chanting Hare Krishna, Maya cannot be present. Otherwise, it's a little difficult to get out of Maya if you have to engage in the negative process. Jai. Thanks for sharing. I just saw the share. Yeah, if anybody wants to share the stream on Facebook, that'd be nice. More the merrier. So, continuing text number 3. Even as Dhruva Maharaj fixed the weapon made by Narayan Rishi onto his bow, arrows with golden shafts and feathers, like the wings of a swan, flew out from it. Wow. They entered the enemy soldiers with a great hissing sound, just as peacocks enter a forest with tumultuous crowing. Text 4. Those sharp arrows dismayed the enemy soldiers, who became almost unconscious, but various yakshas on the battlefield, in a rage against Dhruva Maharaj, somehow or other collected their weapons and attacked. Just as serpents, agitated by Garuda, rushed towards Garuda with upraised hoods, all the yakshas' soldiers prepared to overcome Dhruva Maharaj with their upraised weapons. When Dhruva Maharaj saw the yakshas coming forward, he immediately took his arrows and cut the enemies to pieces, separating their arms, legs, heads, and bellies from their bodies. He delivered the yakshas to the planetary system, which is situated above the sun globe, and which is attainable only by first-class brahmacharis, who have never discharged their semen. Purport: to be killed by the Lord or by his devotee is auspicious for non-devotees. I'll read that again. To be killed by the Lord or by his devotees is auspicious for non-devotees. Okay, don't share this with the non-devotees. The yakshas were killed indiscriminately by Dhruva Maharaj, but they attained the planetary system attainable only for brahmacharis who never discharged their semen. As the impersonalist jnanis, or the demons killed by the Lord, attain Brahmaloka or Satyaloka, persons killed by a devotee of the Lord also attain Satyaloka. To reach the Satyaloka planetary system described here, one has to be elevated above the sun globe. Killing, therefore, is not always bad. If the killing is done by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or his devotee, or in great sacrifices, it is for the benefit of the entire it is for the benefit for the entity killed in that way. So when Prabhupada says devotee in this case, say pure devotee. Material so-called nonviolence is very insignificant in comparison to killing done by the Supreme Personality of Godhead or his devotees. Even when a king or the state government kills a person who is a murderer, that killing is for the benefit of the murderer, for thus he may become cleared of all sinful reactions. Of course, it's also good for society, because then you have this crazed, lunatic that thinks it's okay to kill people is now out of society. And that's a good thing. An important word in this verse is urdhva-retasaha, which means brahmacharis who have never discharged semen. Celibacy is so important that even though one does not undergo any austerities, penance, or ritualistic ceremonies prescribed in the Vedas, if one simply keeps himself a pure brahmachari,
not discharging his semen, the result is that after death he goes to the Satyaloka. Wow. Generally, sex life is the cause of all miseries in the material world. In the Vedic civilization, sex life is restricted in various ways. Out of the whole population of the social structure, only the grihastas are allowed restricted sex life. All others refrain from sex. The people of this age especially do not know the value of not discharging semen. As such, they are variously entangled with material qualities and suffer an existence of struggle only. The word urdhva retasa especially indicates the Mayavadi sannyasis who undergo strict principles of austerity. But in the Bhagavad Gita 8.16, the Lord says that even if one goes up to Brahmaloka, he again comes back. Abrahmana bhuvana loka purnar avartinorjuna. Therefore, actual mukti or liberation can be attained only by devotional service. Because by devotional service one can go above Brahmaloka, or to the spiritual world, wherefrom he never comes back. Mayavadi sannyasis are very proud of becoming liberated, but actual liberation is not possible unless one is in touch with the Supreme Lord in devotional service. It is said, Harim vina na shritim taranti. Without Krishna's mercy, no one can have liberation. When it is true that actually our society, getting back to this thing about sex life, everybody in this society promotes sex life and is just completely into it, and just brags about it if they can have good sex life. It's just completely this is a totally unacceptable philosophy if you talk about this to most people. It's pretty sad, because the very thing that they enjoy is the very thing that is causing, most of their suffering, as Prabhupada puts it here. It's causing most of their suffering. And in fact, Srila Prabhupada said that if you follow the four regulative principles, you can avoid 90% of the suffering in this material world. In other words, most of the suffering people are going through is totally unnecessary, and they don't even know it. That's the nature of ignorance. Just like the camels who, that's why the camel is the example for this. The camel goes and eats the thorn bush, and when he eats the thorn bush, he tastes the thorns, and that cuts his tongue, and he actually tastes the blood, not the thorns, but it cuts his tongue, and that's the pleasure he experiences, the warm blood of his own tongue. And so it's described that the sex life is the same way. One is simply enjoying the taste of their own blood. It's a bit cannibalistic, in other words. And I don't know, it's kind of funny how if you'd ask people, well, what's the result of having promiscuous sex? You would, lots of different STDs, children you don't want, relationships you don't want, disturbed mind, fighting over, broken hearts or whatever, over spreading diseases and things like that. It's just, it's really a major source of suffering in this world. And it's too bad that we wouldn't be able to share that with people, and they would get that. They'd say, "What? That's the greatest enjoyment in this world." But anyway, people are in Maya. Text 6. When Swayambhuva Manu saw that his grandson Dhruva Maharaj was killing so many of the yakshas who were not actually offenders, out of his great compassion, he approached Dhruva with great sages to give him good instruction. Purport. Dhruva Maharaj attacked Alakapuri, the city of the Yakshas, because his brother was killed by one of them. Actually, only one of the citizens, not all of them, was guilty of killing his brother, Uttama. Dhruva Maharaj, of course, took a very serious step when his brother was killed by the Yakshas. War was declared, and the fighting was going on. This sometimes happens in the present day also. For one man's fault, the whole state is sometimes attacked. This kind of wholesale attack is not approved by Manu, the father and lawgiver of the human race. He therefore wanted to stop his grandson Dhruva from continuing to kill the Yaksha citizens who were not offenders. Yeah, it's a good point. There's also karma in the next life that you get, and a lot of the karma we're experiencing now, suffering we're getting now, is likely an extension of that. And the main thing that keeps us in this material world is sex life, because from that then you have children, you have home, you have reason, it really anchors you to the material world. That's why only grihastas are allowed even restricted sex life, and all other orders shouldn't do it at all, because it is kind of like, it's a necessity, but it's really the last thing you want to do if your life is all about spirituality. So yeah, there's a great problem that creates. Oh, I didn't realize I was gonna put on some music here too. Let me know if you can hear this. Okay, continue to read here. Text number 7. Lord Manu said, "My dear son, please stop. It is not good to become unnecessarily angry. It is a path to hellish life. Now you are going beyond the limit by killing yakshas who are actually not offenders." Do you guys hear Prabhupada singing in the background? Purport. In this verse, the word Atiroshena means with unnecessary anger. When Dhruva Maharaj went beyond the limits of necessary anger, his grandfather Swayambhuva Madhu immediately came to protect him from further sinful action. From this we can understand that killing is not bad, but when killing is done unnecessarily, or when an offenseless person is killed, such killing opens the path to hell. Dhruva Maharaj was saved from such sinful action because he was a great devotee. A Kshatriya is allowed to kill only for maintenance and for the law and order of the state. He is not allowed to kill or commit violence without reason. Violence is certainly a path leading to a hellish condition of life, but it is also required for maintenance of the law and order of the state. Here Lord Manu prohibited Dhruva Maharaj from killing the Yakshas because only one of them was punishable for killing his brother, Uttama. Not all the Yaksha citizens were punishable. We find in modern warfare, however, that attacks are made upon innocent citizens who are without fault, or according to the law of Manu, such warfare is a most sinful activity. Furthermore, at the present moment, civilized nations are unnecessarily maintaining many slaughterhouses for killing innocent animals. When a nation is attacked by its enemies, the wholesale slaughter of the citizens should be taken as a reaction to their own sinful activities. That is nature's law. Oh, good, you can hear them. So, well, that's pretty heavy. There's that statement right there. When a nation is attacked by its enemies, the wholesale slaughter of the citizens should be taken as a reaction to their own sinful activities. That is nature's law. So Prabhupada's obviously making a connection to wars that we all must, engage in by political and moral obligation to the slaughter of animals. That animals are being killed unnecessarily, and so by nature's law, you have a karmic reaction as a nation, because the whole nation is participating in it in one way or shape or form. And so there'll be a reaction for it at some point, and that's unfortunate. Just like everything else in the material world is unfortunate. But that's a pretty heavy statement, and of course, that requires a great deal of faith in in the Bhagavatam and in Srila Prabhupada. But for someone who believes in karma, it makes sense that the deaths of for example, American citizens in wars are caused due to the sinful activities of the American people. It's just more unfortunate stuff that could be avoided. But of course, people don't believe in the laws of karma, and they don't think there's anything wrong with it. So it's a bit of a tough message to get out there. Yeah. Karma, if you really discuss it with people, is a very difficult thing for people to get, because then it's like, yeah, everything bad that happened to you is it's your fault, or you've done something that you deserve this. And that's when someone is suffering from something horrible that happens to them, that's the last thing they want to hear. And generally it's true, that's not what you want to tell people immediately, especially when they're in the midst of being traumatized or something. It's best to say this is not your fault, because then that helps people kind of process something. But when our consciousness is clear, and we are peaceful, and we're thinking philosophically about things, this is the right understanding, that whatever happens to us is part of our karmic reaction. And if you can, from that peaceful state of mind, if people in general can embrace that idea, then when difficult things happen, it makes it much easier to process what's going on, and simply accept the difficulty in stride, rather than letting it really affect us too severely. It helps one be more detached, knowing that reaction has come and now it's gone, and things like that. So I'll continue. Translation: My dear son, the killing of the sinless yakshas which you have undertaken is not at all approved by authorities, and it does not benefit our family, which is supposed to know the laws of religion and irreligion. My dear son, it has been proved that you are very much affectionate towards your brother, and are greatly aggrieved at his being killed by the yakshas. But just consider, for one yaksha's offense you have killed many others who are innocent. One should not accept the body as the self, and thus, like the animals, kill the bodies of others. This is especially forbidden by saintly persons who follow the path of devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport: the word Sadhu-sanga dasa are very significant. Sadhu means a saintly person. But who is a saintly person? A saintly person is he who follows the path of rendering service unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Hrishikesha and the Nardapancharatra is... excuse me. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hrishikesha. So, in the Nardapancharatra it is said, Hrishikena Hrishikesha Sevanam Bhaktir Uchate. The process of rendering favorable service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead with one's senses is called bhakti, or devotional service. Therefore, why should a person who is already engaged in the service of the Lord engage himself in personal sense gratification? Dhruva Maharaj is advised here by Lord Manu that he is a pure servitor of the Lord. Why should he unnecessarily engage, like the animals, in the bodily concept of life? An animal thinks that the body of another animal is his food. Therefore, in the bodily concept of life, one animal attacks another. A human being, especially one who is a devotee of the Lord, should not act like this. A saintly devotee, a sadhu, a saintly devotee, is not supposed to kill animals unnecessarily. And again, with the animal slaughter, not supposed to kill animals unnecessarily, or each other unnecessarily, right? Where's the necessity? Some religions nowadays are based off of killing others. At any rate, okay, text 11. It is very difficult to achieve the spiritual abode of Hari and the Vaikuntha planets, but you are so fortunate that you are already destined to go to that abode by worshipping him as the supreme abode of all living entities. Purport. The material bodies of all living entities cannot exist unless sheltered by the spirit soul of the supersoul. The spirit soul is dependent on the supersoul, who is present even within the atom. Therefore, since everything, material or spiritual, is completely dependent on the Supreme Lord, the Supreme Lord is referred to here as Bhutavasa. Dhruva Maharaj, as a Kshatriya, could have argued with his grandfather, Manu, when Manu requested him to stop fighting. But even though Dhruva could have argued that as a Kshatriya it was his duty to fight with the enemy, he was informed that since every living entity is a residence of the Supreme Lord and can be considered a temple of the Lord, the unnecessary killing of any living entity is not permitted. And this is also a really good argument against people that are meat eaters. You could just say, well, there's so much suffering in this world. Do you really want to continue the suffering in this world? I choose not to participate in increasing the suffering that exists in this world, because it's not necessary. There's so many vegetables, there's so many fruits, there's so many grains, there's so many products that you can eat, especially in this day and age. It's absolutely unnecessary to simply pleasure my tongue at the expense and extreme suffering of another living entity. And so many things are suffering, and you want to add to that suffering by just because you want to satisfy your tongue. That sounds whimsical. It's wanton violence. And it's completely not necessary. So, people should give it up. That just makes sense. Otherwise, it makes sense to say that people are basically animals in that connection, that it's animalistic to kill another's body simply for the maintenance of your own. That's not very far-seeing. And so, what can you expect from a society that's like that except more ignorance and more violence? And in fact, Socrates believed that you couldn't have a genuinely civilized human society without everyone being vegetarian. That's pretty fascinating stuff. Okay, text number 12. Because you're a pure devotee of the Lord is always thinking of you, and you are also recognized by all his confidential devotees. Your life is meant for exemplary behavior. I am therefore surprised. Why have you undertaken such an abominable task? Purport. Dhruva Maharaj was a pure devotee and was accustomed to always thinking of the Lord. Reciprocally, the Lord always thinks of those pure devotees who think of him only, 24 hours a day. As a pure devotee does not know anything beyond the Lord, so the Lord does not know anything beyond his pure devotee. Swayambhuva Manu pointed out this fact to Dhruva Maharaj. Not only are you a pure devotee, but you are recognized by all pure devotees of the Lord. You should always act in such an exemplary way that others may learn from you. Under the circumstances, it is surprising that you have killed so many faultless yakshas. Now this point here, some people think Shiva is the Supreme Lord, and sometimes they'll cite the example that Vishnu is always thinking of Lord Shiva. Well, you can go into the Bhagavatam and you can find places where Shiva is saying he's always thinking of Lord Vishnu. So then the people will say, well, why is Vishnu always thinking of Shiva if Shiva's not supreme? Well, it's because of this, because Shiva's a devotee. And in the Bhagavatam, Shiva makes it very clear who's supreme. And in the earlier parts of this canto, actually, Vishnu appears in an arena where Shiva is, and he bows down. Everybody bows down. And it's obvious that Vishnu is the supreme person, because he diminishes the potency of everyone else. So the answer is simply that Narayan is always thinking of Shiva, because Shiva is always meditating on Narayan. And since Shiva was born from Brahma, who was born from Narayan, Narayan is original, whereas Shiva is secondary or comes later. Text 13. So back to Manu's surprise that Dhruva is killing the Yakshas. Translation: the Lord is very satisfied with his devotees when the devotee greets other people with tolerance, mercy, friendship, and equality. Purport: it is the duty of an advanced devotee and the second stage of devotional perfection to act in accordance with this verse. There are 3 stages of devotional life. In the lowest stage, a devotee is simply concerned with the deity in the temple, and he worships the Lord with great devotion, according to the rules and regulations. In the second stage, the devotee is cognizant of his relationship with the Lord, his relationship with fellow devotees, his relationship with persons who are innocent, and his relationships with persons who are envious. Sometimes devotees are ill-treated by envious persons. It is advised that an advanced devotee should be tolerant. He should show complete mercy to persons who are ignorant or innocent. He should show complete mercy to persons who are ignorant or innocent. A preacher devotee is meant to show mercy to innocent persons whom he can elevate to devotional service. Everyone, by constitutional position, is an eternal servant of God. Everyone's a devotee. Therefore, a devotee's business is to awaken everyone's Krishna consciousness. That is his mercy. As for a devotee's treatment of other devotees who are his equal, he should maintain friendship with them. His general view should be to see every living entity as part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. Different living entities appear in different forms of dress, but according to the instruction of the Bhagavad Gita, a learned person sees all living entities equally. Such treatment by the devotee is very much appreciated by the Supreme Lord. It is said, therefore, that a saintly person is always tolerant and merciful. He is a friend to everyone, and never an enemy to anyone, and he is peaceful. These are some of the good qualities of a devotee. Okay, next page. Translation: one who actually satisfies the Supreme Personality of Godhead during one's lifetime becomes liberated from the gross and subtle material conditions. Thus, being freed from all material modes of nature, he achieves unlimited spiritual bliss. Purport: in the previous verse, it has been explained that one should treat all living entities with tolerance, mercy, friendship, and equality. By such behavior, one satisfies the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and upon his satisfaction, the devotee immediately becomes free from all material conditions. The Lord also confirms this in the Bhagavad Gita. So that's the point, right? That's who we're trying to please Krishna. That's who we really want to satisfy. Because if Krishna is pleased, then, poof, no material problems, no material hang-ups, no material encumbrance. That's the magic trick. Pleasing Krishna. But if you want to know how to please Krishna, you have to follow the instructions of spiritual master, which fortunately for us are very clearly outlined in this book we're reading right now, as we just read from the last verse. So, the Lord also confirms this in Bhagavad Gita. Quote, anyone who sincerely and seriously engages in my service immediately becomes situated in the transcendental stage wherein he can enjoy unlimited spiritual bliss. Unquote. Everyone in this material world is struggling hard in order to achieve blissful life. Unfortunately, people do not know how to achieve it. Atheists do not believe in God, and certainly they do not please him. Here it is clearly said that upon pleasing the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one immediately attains to the spiritual platform and enjoys unlimited blissful life. To become free from material existence means to become free from the influence of material nature. The word samprasane, which is used in this verse, means being satisfied. A person should act in such a way that the Lord is satisfied by the activity. It is not that he himself is to be satisfied. Of course, when the Lord is satisfied, the devotee automatically becomes satisfied. This is the secret of the process of bhakti yoga. Outside of bhakti yoga, everyone is trying to satisfy himself. No one is trying to satisfy the Lord. So, okay. Hare Krishna, Krishna Kumari. Thanks for listening. Gotta have a crowd or an audience, sort of, to do this sort of thing. So, I'm glad you like it. This point should be we should really think about and understand that unless knows the process of bhakti yoga, unless someone is inside the process of bhakti yoga or has experienced it, being outside of bhakti yoga, everyone is trying to satisfy himself. No one is trying to satisfy the Lord. We should make that very clear, just not to be negative towards anybody, but just for ourselves, so we can know how to distinguish between good association and bad association, and how to treat people accordingly. In this way, we'll be more peaceful ourselves. A lot of good things come from knowing this. We won't be confused by, or deluded by so many philosophies. So karmis grossly try to satisfy their senses, but even those who are elevated to the platform of knowledge also try to satisfy themselves in a subtle form. Karmis try to satisfy themselves by sense gratification, and jnanis try to satisfy themselves by subtle activities or mental speculation and thinking themselves to be God. Yogis also try to satisfy themselves by thinking that they can achieve different mystic perfections. But only devotees try to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The devotee's process of self-realization is completely different from the process of the karmis, jnanis, and yogis. And that's the point. Like, yogis are very subtle, very mystic people. Jnanis, there's lots of jnanis out there. They're very subtle and they're, often very mystic kind of people. Karmis, not so much. But, well, karmis, they worship the demigods. And people take that as spiritual. People take all that stuff, all the self-help, all the subtle, psychological, emotional, sentimental stuff. People take that as, spiritual, or having something to do with spirituality, and it's generally, not true, because what makes something spiritual is, are you trying to satisfy the Lord by your work, by your activity, by your prayer, by your mentality? That's the thing that makes it transcendental. And so we have a very great way of doing it here, because we can learn how to think like a devotee. And so then our very thoughts, what goes on in the head, if that is put together in the right way, that will be pleasing to Krishna. And that's a great way to make spiritual advancement. You worship Krishna with your intelligence by studying Bhagavad Gita and studying Srimad Bhagavatam. That's a great way to make spiritual advancement. If Krishna is pleased, you'll make spiritual advancement. That's what it's all about. What to speak of, all the other practical things in devotional service, like chanting and worshiping the deity and distributing books and things like that. But we have, on all levels, we can be engaged. And if Krishna is pleased, we'll get free from material entanglement. So Prabhupada continues here. Everyone else is trying to satisfy himself, whereas the devotee tries only to satisfy the Lord. The devotional process is completely different from the others. By working to please the Lord, by engaging his senses in the Lord's loving service, the devotee is immediately situated on the transcendental platform, and he enjoys unlimited blissful life. And and when you talk about it like that, we're only trying to satisfy the Lord. We're only trying to satisfy the Lord. If you're living like that, where's the room for selfishness? Where's the room for corruption? Where's the room for anything of that sort? It just there's no room for it. And so on the other side, if there's nobody doing that, if everyone is interested in satisfying their mind or their senses or their sense of peacefulness or liberation or whatever, if that's what everybody is doing, then everyone in the material world is corrupted on some level. No one is absolutely selfless. And this is basically the main complaint everybody has about every single politician that's out there, or every single business that is in operation, or every single greedy person that's out there, corporate or in the government or whatever, is that people are acting for their own self-interest. But you can't not act for your own immediate selfish interest unless you're going to be engaged in devotional service. If you engage in devotional service, then that is automatic. They're two mutually exclusive things. Material activity is selfish activity. All of it. Gross, subtle, the whole spectrum. And spiritual activity, engaging in Krishna's service, is absolutely selfless, and it has completely to do with satisfying Krishna. In doing that, one is never selfishly engaged. And to the degree that one is actually purified, then that is a reality. So, in other words, what I'm trying to say is that's what this world is looking for. That's what everyone's looking for. Everyone is looking to solve all their problems in life, and most of the time everybody's complaining about how everyone is so corrupt around them. And the reality is that they don't have enough devotee association of genuine devotees to get relief from the constant selfishness that is bombarding them. They're trying to take from everyone. Everyone's trying to take from them. People grow up and get jaded. And in a few generations, I suppose, if there's enough devotees around, you could solve this problem. Because people, when they're young, as they're growing up, they're pretty innocent, more or less. People are pretty innocent, and they just kind of take on whatever association they get. And then only when they get older do they start to really, act out the selfishness, because they start to realize how everyone is actually totally selfish. But so that's a whole cultural issue. And so, the culture of Krishna consciousness just needs to be promoted more and more and more. And I guess this stream is a good way to do that, to start doing that, at least do my own little part. It's out there. Anyone can tune in, and these kind of topics can be discussed. And maybe someone will have an opinion about it, and we could have a debate or something. That would be kind of a cool thing. So I'm going to stop there. It's getting pretty late for us. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe. I know there's nobody else watching except Sudevi right now, but just in case later on in the future people are watching this stream and listening to it, and they're listening to the recording, please subscribe, and whenever we go to do a live stream, you'll get a notification. Send me an email if you want to discuss with me or anything like that. So thank you very much. Jai Srila Prabhupada, Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Hare Krishna.